Thank you for joining me again. Now, last week's video was about the Irish Pro Invitational. Now, I've not had much rest and recovery. In fact, I've not been able to fit a proper gym session in between this because on Thursday I'll be competing at the AWPC World Championships. So, me as a lifter, I value rest rather than repeated hammering it in the gym. So I've decided to have one light session in my 10 days between each competition, and in that I've just hit my openers across all three lifts. At the competition on Thursday, I will be competing in the raw category. So if anyone's forgotten, the raw category is where I have naked knees, a bit just like this now, nothing on them, no knee sleeves or knee wraps. I have no bench shirts, no squat suits or deadlift suits, just belt, wrist wraps and all the stuff that must be worn for safety reasons, and a singlet. So this video is titled How to Prepare for a Competition, because that's obviously what I'm doing now. It's a bit modified for me at the moment compared to what you'd normally do. So what I did for the Irish Pro was I had a 12-week build, and each week I'd lift more and more and more weight, and I'd by the end of it be ready and breaking PBs like I did on the day. But the general thing that you need to do is make sure that you are rested, recovered, and you train hard in the gym, but make sure, like I said, rested and recovered, that you have healed. And if you've got any niggling injuries, you want to make sure they're all gone. Like after the Irish Pro Invitational, I injured my back a little bit, so I couldn't hit the numbers that I wanted on the day on the deadlift. But that's all recovered now. A lot of the time I get an intercostal muscle injury, which if you've ever had a rack of ribs to eat, it's basically the meat you eat from the ribs. Yeah, I've torn that a few times, and it's just a niggling injury that you don't want, and you want fully rested and recovered. You tend to pick these injuries up during training, and you just have to, you sort of want to work through it, but at the same time, you know deep down that you've got to rest. And as I said, I value rest rather than hitting it hard in the gym. So you've just got to take that step away, skip a week out, rest. But if that happens on the day of a competition, you've got to do absolutely anything to get through that day and hit the numbers that you're willing to compromise and hit, because as a PB break is personal best, and your best you shouldn't be able to hit in pieces and in agony. So you've got to compromise, and these aren't me. But maybe you're a big guy and you want that 300 kilo deadlift. You've been desperate for this 300 kilo deadlift that you've been training for ages. You've hit 290 before, and that were easy, but your back is in agony, so you just do a 292.5. You've got something positive to take away from the day. Not quite the big goal that you wanted, but you take little positives away from the day that you can. And that's what I did with the Irish Pro Invitational, and if the worst case were to happen at the World Championships, I'd make sure that's what I were doing. So I've explained what you're doing preparing for a competition from the long term, your 3-4 month out, up until the week out, but the actual, in that rest week, you do have a few important things to do. The most important thing that you've got to do is pack your kit. I pack it in a suitcase because that's an easy method to get it all in, and instead of pulling it around like carrying it, you can just drag it around and it makes it nice and light with the wheels. But you need to make sure you've got absolutely every piece of kit you could possibly need in here. Like, I'll be in the raw category, as I've already said, so I don't need the knee sleeves, knee wraps or anything like that, so that frees up a lot of room, but it's normally jam-packed full. But I always make sure I've got spares of the things I can have. Like, I have 2 singlets in there, but I make sure I've got my squat shoes, my wrist wraps, a belt, absolutely everything. I've got about 4 checklists. I've asked my mum, my dad, my brother, everyone, just to check that I've got it all. you cannot miss any equipment, otherwise it could be, as I say, it's in big lifts on the day, especially at World Championships. It's a culmination of a full year in the sport. Another thing that I've got to mention is clean kit. Like, some federations are more picky than others, but you need clean kit. Like, let's say last time you used your singlet, you had competition and you had your back all chalked up for your squat and you tapped up your knees and it got all of it, your singlet. Just get it clean out rest of your kit while you're at it, you know, if you get out on your belt, your wrist wraps. It just looks a lot more presentable. I said some federations are a bit more picky than others, but look neat and tidy. You feel better in yourself if your kit's clean. Like, you don't really think about it, but when someone tells it you, you're like, yeah, it just makes sense. Like, first instance it happened with me, I were at British powerlifting and the British bench press championships, and I was told my singlet just looks dirty. To be fair, did. Back were all chalked and everything. But again, that federation is trying to drive the sport into the Olympics, and to do that, everything's got to look clean, presentable, pristine. It's got to look to that Olympic standard, and that helps it. And even if you're not with them, just clean kit, please. It looks a lot better. So that's it with the kit, and I'm going to talk about a thing that it involves a select few people, but if you're competing in a federation that has a 24-hour weigh-in, that is, if I'm competing on Thursday, that means there'll be a weigh-in available from Wednesday. That, let's say I compete at 9 o'clock Thursday, it'll be 9 o'clock Wednesday. 24 hours available before the competition starts. So let's say you've got one of them. You may have heard of a water cut, which basically means like body weight and mass. It's hard to describe, but your body weight and mass could be like 70 kilos, but you've got a lot of water inside you, which if you kick that water out, you could be down about 65 kilos. That's me, for example. So instead of being in the 75 kilo category, you can get yourself down into the 67.5 category. That works for me. I'm doing a variation of that for the AWPC World Championships in a few days' time, but you struggle to do that on a federation like the IPF or British Powerlifting, where you only have a 2-hour weigh-in, because you find yourself, you take all that water out of your body, you need a lot of time to put it all in, because as well as doing that, you take all the carbohydrates and the salts out of your body, which really does take that time to put in. A lot of people say 2 hours isn't enough. It's something I'm yet to experiment with, so I cannot comment from personal experience. I probably will try it. Just see, it could work for me. It might not for you. It could work for Tom next door. It could not. We don't know. Each person to their own. Each person to their own is a general saying with absolutely anything in this sport, like how you tie knee wraps or stuff. That's just a random example. But a water cut is optional. I would only ever advise it if you really, really need to do it. Like, last year I weighed about 65 kilos. There'd be absolutely no point doing a water cut when I'm already in the weight category. Or if you weigh 68 kilos where you're just about in the weight category. I just don't have breakfast on the morning of the weigh-in. But if you're like me at the moment, I was weighing 70 kilos before I started this. It's a little much to lose. Not as much as I know some people's done, but I'd definitely advise doing it if you've got more than 2 kilos of body weight to lose, because it'll just flush it all out. You'll not risk any chance of muscle loss or strength loss, and it'll greatly increase your chances of hitting the big numbers that you want on the day. As well as that, to help you with that, it allows you to train at that heavier body weight. So like I said, I can train at 70 kilos body weight, weigh in at 67.5 kilos body weight, and be back up at 70 kilos body weight. So I'm fighting fit, healthy with that extra body weight advantage over someone that may be training and competing at 67.5 kilos exactly on the body weight. Alright, I'm going to wrap this video up now, but before I get to that, I'll just quickly thank my sponsors, Alpha Official. I personally sadly can't use these because they're banned in powerlifting, but these are lifting straps. They're mainly used on pull exercises. You'll probably seen some other people use these around the gym. Basically, to use them, you will thread this end through a loop over here, stick your arm through, well, your wrist through, get a nice tighten, make sure it's really, really tight, and you will wrap this around the bar or the piece of equipment you're using. Grab hold of it, and let's say you've got really bad grip strength, that'll put some of the weight from being in the hand and the grip to being on the wrist. I said, anyone that uses lifting straps, I would definitely recommend these. I can't use them, but I use them for 1 or 2 deadlifts when I was working towards my openers. They're good. I can see why a lot of people use them that don't compete. So like I say, I'm going to wrap it up. Next week's video is obviously going to be all about the AWPC World Championships. Now, this video is going out a bit late because I was just hanging on to absolute last second because I was desperate to do a video on my multiplier lifting gear, but it's just not coming. I've been told, it seems like past week I've been told it'll be here tomorrow, it'll be here tomorrow, it'll be here tomorrow, and it's still not here, so it's going out a bit late this. But as I said, my next video will be about the AWPC World Championships and how I do. But the week after, I can 100% promise that will be about my package from America. Absolutely guaranteed. It will be. But thanks for joining me this week, and join in next week to find out how I go at the AWPC World Championships.